Hi kids, today we're going to read Curious George and the Firefighters by Margaret and H.A. Rays. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today George and his friends, the man with the yellow hat, joined Miss Gray and her class on the field trip to the fire station. The fire chief was waiting for them right next to the big red fire truck. "Welcome," he said, and he led everyone upstairs to begin the tour. There was a kitchen with a big table, and there were snacks for everyone. The fire chief told them all about being a firefighter. George tried hard to pay attention, but there were so many things for a little monkey to explore, like the shiny silver pole in the corner. Where did the pole go? George was curious. Why, it went back downstairs. There was a great big fire truck. There was a map of the city, and there was a whole wall full of coats and hats and big black boots. George had an idea. First, he stepped into a pair of boots. Next, he picked out a helmet. And finally, George put on a jacket. He was a firefighter. Suddenly, bring! The firefighters all rushed in. "This is not my helmet," said one. "My boots are too big," said another. Hurry, called the fire chief. A big red light on the map of the city told him just where the fire was. There was no time to waste. One by one, the firefighters jumped into the fire truck, and so did George. The fire truck with all the firefighters sped out of the firehouse, and so did George. The siren screamed and the lights flashed. The truck turned right, then it turned left. Woo, 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 went the whistle, and George held on tight. Soon the fire truck and all the firefighters pulled up to a pizza parlor on the main street. Smoke was coming out of the window in the back, and a crowd was gathered in the street. "Thank goodness you're here," cried the cook. The firefighters rushed off the truck and started unwinding their hose. They knew just what to do, and George was ready to help. He climbed up on the hose reel. One of the firefighters saw George trying to help, and he took George by the arm and led him out of the way. "A fire is no place for a monkey," he said to George. "You stay here where it's safe." George felt terrible. George sat on the bench and looked around. Next to him on the ground was a bucket full of balls. George reached in and took one out. It fit in his hand just right, like the apple he had for a snack. A little girl was watching George. He tried to give her the ball, but she was too frightened. George took another ball and another. "Look," a boy said, "that monkey is juggling." The boy took a ball from the cage and tossed it to George, but it went too high. George climbed up onto the fire truck to get at. Now George had 4 balls to juggle. He threw the balls higher and higher. He juggled with his hand. He juggled with his feet. He could do all kinds of tricks. The boy threw another ball to George. George threw a ball back to the boy. The little girl reached down and picked up a ball too. Soon all the children were throwing and catching back and forth. The fire chief came to tell everyone that the fire was out. Just then the little girl laughed and said, "Look, Mommy, a fire monkey." "Hey," called the fire chief, "what are you doing up there?" "What a wonderful idea," the little girl's mother said to the fire chief, "bringing this brave little monkey to help the children when they were frightened." "Oh," the fire chief said, "well, thank you." Before long, the fire truck was back at the fire station where a familiar voice called, "George!" It was the man with the yellow hat. "This little monkey had quite an adventure," said the firefighters. "Is everything all right?" asked Miss Gray. "Yes, it was just a small fire," said the fire chief, "and George was a big help. Now the field trip was coming to an end, but there was one more treat in store. All of the children got to go take a ride around the neighborhood on the shiny red fire truck, and they all got their very own fire helmet, even George, and it was just the right size for a brave little monkey. The end. Bye, kids.